The front gates of the sprawling Lexington estate creaked open as the sleek black Bentley rolled silently down the gravel path. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows over the marble fountains and manicured hedges. But none of that beauty mattered to Richard Beaumont tonight. He had come home early, unannounced. Something had been gnawing at him all day, a strange, inexplicable unease. Richard, a self-made millionaire, was known in New York's elite circles as a ruthless businessman. He had clawed his way from poverty to penthouse, never looking back. But in his relentless pursuit of wealth, he had distanced himself from the only thing that ever truly mattered, his daughter, Emily. As he stepped out of the car and into the entryway of his grand mansion, Richard froze. A scream tore through the silence of the house. High-pitched, terrified. It was Emily. Without a second thought, Richard dropped his leather briefcase and ran. His footsteps echoed off marble floors as he raced up the winding staircase, heart pounding like a drum. He'd never heard that kind of fear in her voice before, not even when she had fallen off her bike as a child and broke her arm. This was different. This was primal. He burst into her bedroom and stopped cold. Emily, just 16 years old, was huddled in the corner, shaking, her arms wrapped around herself. Her favorite stuffed panda lay discarded on the floor. And standing above her, shouting, was someone Richard recognized with a jolt of horror. His brother, Carl. Carl was supposed to be in rehab. Richard had paid for the best treatment center in Arizona just 3 months ago. But now, here he was, uninvited, wild-eyed, and reeking of alcohol, spewing slurred accusations about money, betrayal, and lies. "Uncle Carl was yelling at me," Emily cried, her voice cracking. "He pushed me. He said I was just like Mom." Those words hit Richard like a freight train. Emily's mother, Laura, had died 7 years earlier. She had struggled with depression, worsened by Carl's erratic behavior. Richard had tried to keep Carl away, but guilt and blood ties always brought him back. Tonight, that decision nearly destroyed everything. Richard grabbed Carl by the collar and dragged him out of the room. "You ever come near her again, I swear to God!" But Carl was too drunk to hear him, already half-conscious. He called security, had him removed, and stood alone in the hallway, trembling. He returned to Emily, who was still sobbing in the corner. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "I should have protected you better. I should have been here." For the first time in years, Richard didn't feel like a millionaire. He felt like a failure as a father. Emily looked up at him through teary eyes. "Why weren't you home, Dad? Why are you never home?" Her voice broke him. Not because she yelled, but because she asked a question that needed no answer. That night, Richard didn't return to his office. He didn't take any business calls. Instead, he sat by Emily's side, holding her hand until she fell asleep. And when the sun rose, he made a decision. He canceled all his meetings for the next month. Over the following weeks, Richard became a different man. He woke up early to make Emily breakfast, even though his eggs were terrible. He drove her to school, much to her embarrassment, and picked her up every afternoon. He even started attending her therapy sessions, sitting quietly, listening, learning how to be present. They started walking together in Central Park on weekends, just father and daughter. No business deals, no chauffeurs, just laughter and long talks about life, school, music, and memories of her mom. But healing wasn't instant. Emily had nightmares. She flinched when the doorbell rang unexpectedly, and every time Richard left the room, she asked if he was coming back. That's when he realized something deeper. It wasn't just Carl who scared her. It was the idea that even her father might leave again. So Richard made a promise. "I will never leave you alone again. Not in this house, not in this life." A year passed. Carl, under court orders, was back in rehab with no visitation rights. Emily, now 17, had started writing poetry again. something she stopped after her mom passed. She even submitted her work to a national competition and won third place. Richard sat in the front row at the awards ceremony, tears in his eyes, clapping like his life depended on it. That night, they walked out of the auditorium into a light drizzle. Emily leaned on his shoulder and said, "You know, I used to think money solved everything, but I was wrong. You coming home, that saved me." Richard smiled, not the kind of smile he used in boardrooms, but a real one, raw, human, grateful. He had spent decades building skyscrapers, acquiring companies, and amassing wealth, but none of it had given him what that single sentence from his daughter just had. In the end, it wasn't the millions in the bank that defined his success. It was learning how to be a father again. We chase riches, believing they'll secure happiness, but often forget that the true treasures of life are found in the people we love, especially when they need us most.